Hi, welcome back to Clutch Time Huddle. We're going to break down some of the winner moves that have happened since the Super Bowl. The first thing we want to touch upon is the Alex Smith deal. He's been traded from San Fran to KC. KC banked on Castle a few years ago and struck out. They decided it's time for a new quarterback, as that's what makes the league go. They got in touch with a familiar face, as you'll hear later, in San Fran, and they acquired the quarterback Alex Smith, who was the #1 pick a few years ago. San Fran was lucky enough to hit on the Colin Kaepernick pick, and he took him to the Super Bowl. Matt, what do you got to say about that?
I think it's a really good trade for Kansas City and for San Fran because they got such a good return value for Smith. I was really surprised that they were able to get potentially 2 second-round draft picks for a quarterback when you look at the past and what quarterbacks have gotten as far as trades go. I was really happy to see Andy Reid go to Kansas City, and now he has a quarterback that he can build around. And one of the things that for San Fran, they already have so many great draft picks, and now they add even more to a really good franchise. What do you got to say about that?
Well, what I was looking at when I broke down this trade is obviously the return value. San Fran, just 2 more picks. That gives them over 10 picks this draft. 3 of them in the top 30 picks. They're already in a position to go far. They obviously in the Super Bowl this year. They could put some talent around Kaepernick outside of Crabtree. They really got good value. How about you?
I was really happy to see, like you said, them to give more value, and then you see that Dwayne Bowe got re-signed with Kansas City. All the weapons that they have, they finally have a quarterback that they can build around. Potentially, look at the past, like we talked about earlier, Elvis Gerbott, Bono, Joe Montana, all these different quarterbacks that came from San Francisco, to Kansas City. Will they finally get it right? Will they finally have a true quarterback? I was really surprised that they went the trade route instead of a draft route. When you look at the history of Andy Reid and the history of the GM that they got, you would think they would go for a younger quarterback in the draft, but maybe a quarterback in the draft wasn't something that they were interested in, so they went for a proven veteran. They had 5 Pro Bowlers last year on the roster, guys coming back from injury, free agency. Alex Smith certainly, I think, is a good move for them. And for San Francisco, you mentioned earlier, having Colin Kaepernick, he's definitely somebody that the NFL has recognized as a top player. With the current systems implemented in the NFL, he definitely fits what Harbaugh's looking for. And Alex Smith, now maybe he could potentially prove that it's just not, a system fit. Now he goes to a team that's going to expect him to throw 40, 45 times, something he hasn't done in the past.
My worry with the trade is just how rare it is for a quarterback to be traded and go on and be successful in the sense of winning the big one. There have been 4 quarterbacks that have been traded in history that ended up going on to win. One of them, in John Elway, didn't even sign a contract. He refused to play for the Colts when he was drafted in '83 and ended up threatening to play baseball for the Yankees, and he was forced to hand to the Colts. And he ended up going to Denver and winning. The 3 other ones, Brett Favre, obviously, didn't get much playing time in Atlanta. He was more of a project. They struck gold in Green Bay when they got him. Steve Young was in Tampa, USFL, ended up winning the Super Bowl after Montana. A lot of people question his system, but you can't question his numbers. Like, he put up numbers while he was there. The last one was Brad Johnson, and we all know his story. Great defense, solid running game, product. I'm not sure I see Alex Smith as a Favre Elway as opposed to a Bradshaw. And the question is, does Kansas City have the talent around him?
That's definitely a good point that you're reaching on. You look at Andy Reid's history in Philadelphia, having great defenses, having really good players around Donovan McNabb, not just at the wide receiver, the tight end, the skill position. We're talking about offensive line. If you can protect Alex Smith, you can give him the weapons around him. You're only as good as your weapons. So you look at all of the potential free agent scenarios, all the draft scenarios. Having Jamal Charles, it's a very good landing spot for him. I really was a little surprised, to be honest, as far as what they got in return for him, Kansas City. Like I talked about earlier, I really was surprised because you look at Colin Kaepernick, he was a second-round draft pick. And, you look at Russell Wilson last year, you look at all these quarterbacks being found later, guys in free agency. I really was surprised, honestly, just really thinking about it. But like you said, having potential pieces around him, pieces to the puzzle, getting to the big dance. They're in a really good situation right now in Kansas City. It's just going to be determined how they do in that division.
My other worry would be the amount of passes Andy Reid expects from his quarterback.
Absolutely.
The past 5 years, he's averaged 578 passes a year. Alex Smith hasn't even approached that. His highest in any season was 445 passes. That's a big increase. I'm not sure that he's that type of system quarterback. That's going to be my big worry. All I know is Andy Reid's been done very well with quarterbacks that other people have questioned. McNabb, Vic, the draft picks he's had there, that went on and just didn't produce anywhere else. So I guess we'll see if Andy Reid can work his magic.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. Having Jamal Charles is very similar to Brian Westbrook in his skill set, having to screen passes, having to dump passes. I don't really expect them to rely, like you said, heavily on the run. It's just something that he's always going back to Green Bay when they had Brett Favre, when he was there as the quarterback's coach. Certainly, they're going to have to try and work the run game in. That was one of the things that gave people a headache in Philadelphia with McNabb, with those types of players. And one thing that hasn't been mentioned, Alex Smith's not going to be mobile. He's not going to be out. He can run, but he's not going to be Michael Vick or Donovan McNabb taking off for big chunks, making something out of nothing. Can Alex Smith, in your opinion, make something out of nothing? Does he have a bag of tricks? One of the reasons they were so interested in Donovan McNabb coming out of the draft, one of the reasons they were so interested in Michael Vick, because of having the ability to run and get big chunks of yardage that they definitely need. That throwing the ball 45, 50 times a game, it's not going to have things open up for you underneath like you would with a run game.
I guess the one thing I would say is if they end up with Joku, he's got 2 stud tackles. And we'll jump back in we're going to jump into Andy Reid's successor in Philly, Chip Kelly, and his decision to sign Mike Vick. That'll be next.